October meeting of the Radnor Parks and Recreation Department Board. I guess let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I want to thank everybody for their attendance this evening. We will have a couple other members potentially showing up later this evening. Have everybody had a chance to review the minutes from our September meeting? Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the September meeting?
I move we approve.
All in favor? Aye. All, that passes unanimously. Okay, let's go to the reports, the Recreation Report and Community Development Department Report.
I'll take that for Mrs. Cohen tonight. She has a very detailed report. I'm just going to touch on some of the quick highlights. The Fall Harvest and Great Pumping Patch event was a fantastic success. A multitude of people, so many more than last year. It was really great, quite a success, and kudos to the Recreation and Community Programming Department for that. And that was fantastic. Upcoming events include the Trick or Treat at the Township building, the Radnor Run, another great one, the Santa's Delivery gift registration, Santa's Delivery with a gift registration and drop-off, New York City trip, and Holiday at the Willows. And if you look in your packet, you're going to see a sheet. The Radnor Trail was voted 2014 Best of the Main Line in Western Suburbs for running, walking, or a running and walking spot in the Upper Main Line, the Radnor Trail, critics pick. And again, Mrs. Cohen has a really detailed report. I won't get into all of them because I think we're going to discuss some of this business tonight. But I will roll that right into the Public Works report with Paul Basic.
We've been out. Public Works have been out working in Fenimore Woods, took care of some of the washouts, erosion issues over there. We put down riprap in a couple locations where we washed out. We leveled off the driveway with 2A modify, rolled it, looks good, nice and level over there, Fenimore. We fixed the wood on top of the culvert that was over by the playground. I don't know if you guys noticed there's a culvert that runs underground. We took care of the plywood on top of that, sealed that up. It was starting to rot out, so that's taken care of as well. Found that footbridge down at Sawmill, hammering down the nails. Great job with that, thank you. It's on the list to be taken out, removed. But it went down a lot further than we expected. So I'll pass on to Mark about the parks.
Good evening. Just one other item Steve didn't touch on. The Senior Center event was one of our big hits. We had a beautiful day, great turnout, probably 300 seniors, and they didn't have to wait this year. We started early and they didn't like to wait. Also, the grease band at the Willows was also a great hit. So Tammy just wanted me to touch on that. As far as the parks goes, we are winding down before we start leaves, and most of the department goes over to Help Highway to get the leaves picked up in the streets. So that's our main concern starting October 27th. As far as the parks, we're winding down, cutting grass. All the ball fields are complete, been cut out, installed with clay, except for Enki A, because I spoke with Steve Sherry, and they're still playing there, so we're going to take care of that the week of the 27th to finish that up, and everything's good there. Every field's been aerated, seeded, and fertilized before the last big rain, so the areas that have been played hard on are starting to grow already. I was out there today walking the fields, and everything's looking good. So we're just preparing for leaves and for the next round, and hopefully it stays like this all winter. So far, so good. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I want to take the time to say some special recognition of the Great Harvest event this past Sunday. I was there. It was an excellent event, very well attended. I think I heard rumors that people were showing up at about 11 a.m., even though the event didn't start till 1. It sounds like night before Thanksgiving shopping or something like that. But I think it was a great event, and I want to say kudos to the staff for all their hard work on pulling off such a great event yet again.
Thank you. I also want to thank the Public Works Department, working together with the Parks and Recreation Department, how we set up everything 2 days before, cleaned up the day after, and it was just a great team effort. So we were very proud of our men and the Recreation Department. They did a great job.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of great comments about how it's looking right in front of the lake there, right by the lake there, down in front of the mansion. So.
It was amazing. They filled that whole field up with parking, and we're getting a little nervous because it rained the day before, and nobody got stuck. So it turned out really well. So thank you very much.
All righty, so we'll move to other reports, I guess. Elaine, do you have a report for the Board of Commissioners?
Just 2 items. On Monday at our Board of Commissioners meeting, we're going to have a presentation of the final recommended version of the Greenways and Open Space Plan. So that's exciting, and we'll be. I don't believe it'll be. We'll have a vote on it, but we'll get a presentation and discuss it. And then we also are moving toward closing on the Ardrossan open space parcels. And on Monday's agenda, we will be discussing the bond, our first discussions of the bond, and hiring an advisor to help us through that process. So that's it.
All right. Great, thank you. I guess Luke is handling EAC, and Jim handles the shade tree. Are there any other reports, Pat?
I'd just like to dovetail on what Elaine said, that on Monday is the final presentation of the Open Space Greenways Network Plan. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing about that, it's a phased plan, that it's not all or nothing to start. They're looking at presenting it in 5 phases, so funding is there. I would urge everyone to come out and hear that, okay? I didn't bring my notes where I think we're adding approximately 14 miles of additional networking, and it would be a complete loop around the township, tied in up through King of Prussia Road and so on. So I would really encourage everyone to get out and hear the presentation. There was a lot of opportunities for feedback from the various interest groups, but now's the final time so we can present it to the board. As Elaine said, they're not going to be voting on it on Monday night, but addressing it. So I would urge Parks and Rec people to get out and hear that. It's the first thing on the agenda, so it shouldn't take too long. So that's it.
Pat, if you could tell me, what's the time frame, assuming that it would go to a vote at the next commissioners meeting? Is there a time?
Well, I think when you hear it and see it, talking about the cost, you're talking about something that could go out 20-plus years, okay, depending upon the phases and depending upon the cost and the availability of funds. It's not something like a $10,000, project. We're talking about millions of dollars, okay? So, again, the implications, it's probably going out, I would say, at least 15-plus years on there. Would you agree, Elaine, on that? So get out and hear it. And it's interesting, fascinating. It's a great, I think, asset and resource added on to the township, similar to the Radnor Trail. As Steve said, it was voted the best place. I think something like this will embellish and make the township that much more desirable in the next 15 to 20 years. So get out and hear it. If not, it's broadcast on the cable, so tune it in.
And thanks for your effort keeping us informed of everything with that. It's really appreciated, Pat.
And I also been walking around on Ardrossan with Elaine Schaefer, trolloping through the farm area over there as they're going. We did that, what was that, in July and August too, right, Elaine? So that's coming up too. So thank you.
Are there any other reports or park-specific reports? I guess without any, we'll move on to the other agenda items. I'm going to go to old business. I'm going to just flip A and B there. So I guess if we could start with the 2015 Parks Board budget recommendations to staff.
I'll jump in. So we received the park board's spreadsheets on the maintenance items and some of the capital requests, and we dovetailed what you saw for maintenance and what we have on our list. And Lord willing that it doesn't snow the entire winter again, this is the time that we actually we try to get some of these items done. And as we did a few years ago, we instituted a 5-year plan, and we worked again on that this year. So the full budget gets presented to the Board of Commissioners Monday evening. And part of that is the capital plan, and part of that is the parks capital plan, which we separated out. And I was given permission to give this to you. It is a draft. The commissioners haven't even had a chance to go through all this. If you could pass that down. Oh, yes, you have. So this is the staff and I guess managers recommended 5-year plan. And so the way we work this is Tammy Cohen, who's in the programming end, so she has her specific requests that dovetail with Public Works, and we're the ones responsible for the physical facilities, if you will, of the park, the structures. And then the other thing we really try to do is to smooth out the 5-year plan. So if you just switch back to the last page, the bottom line, if you will. So we try to get a somewhat consistent number year after year, so that if it does get approved, from a budgeting standpoint, we try not to have one year that's 3 million, 1 million. So we try to smooth that out. Next year, 215, the requests were lighter, with anticipation of moving forward heavier in the following years. And again, this is just a request. Obviously, this has to go through the budget process with the Board of Commissioners. And just for an example, you pick a park, and let's go to Fenimore Woods. So we did it a little differently this year. We outlined each item in there as opposed to just having a footnote. So you can see this goes out to 2020. So Mrs. Cohen actually has a playground planned out in outlying years, and it's quite a grand playground. It's considerable money. We have money in 2016 requests to pave the parking lots in there. We'd like to do something a little different. We're going to look at using some more to try some stormwater BMPs. I don't know if we can try to use some porous paving, but we're going to try something. Sign replacement, Mrs. Cohen has been very good on this. She actually has a sign inventory, and if you can see, the old blue and white signs at this point are all delaminating throughout the park. So we have money spaced out through the years. I know this sounds strange, but I'm really excited about this one restroom, and I'll tell you why. We're trying to go, I want to go green as we can go. So at Ditmar, we have a specific type of restroom over there. It's not your standard restroom. It's a composting restroom. So these are composting restrooms, but the actual restroom is a precast concrete structure that you can pick your facade, the roof, whatever you want, and it will sit over that. And to take the green effort a little further, there would be no water or electricity to this restroom. So there will be a solar panel on the top. That solar panel would just power an electric door timer to let people in and out during park hours, dusk to dawn, and a couple of safety lights, a few LED lights. And then there would be the waterless hand cleaner inside. So I have these spaced out through, my personal opinion is this is what makes a good park a really nice park, is where you have restrooms where you can go and you're not using porta potties. The Willows is another one. We'd love to put one of these where that porta potty stands all year long. So I know, like I say, it sounds a little strange, but I'm very excited about that green restroom. And you can just look at different outlying years. We have a pavilion. We'll do maintenance to the pavilion at Fenimore, but we have a replacement out in 2018. Again, there's a lot of things we can do. If something drastic happens, that could change that, but we think we can go for a few more years with the way that is. You'll see Friends of Radnor Trail Park. We have some repaving, enhancing the stone parking lot. That basically means putting down some additional stone and trying to dress that up. Ithan Valley Park, we show, again, enhancing the parking lot. There's a, I hope I pronounce this correctly, a Zalkova tree there. And right now, we have boulders that stop people from parking within the drip line of that tree. So we're always keeping an eye open for a grant to do something permanent there. And basically, as you go through North Wayne Park, you can see Mrs. Cohen has $250,000 in 2017 for a new playground. Again, there's a green restroom in there. All the restrooms suggested are the green restrooms. And that's, I can get the park board some more detail on that. If you flip through, not to belabor any specific point, but you'll see the Radnor Trail. You know, I've scheduled out in a few years to have it resurfaced, and the stone areas that have really started to settle would be redone. We're looking for a bathroom to do at the Brookside parking lot. We have porta potties there now, and if we can, we're going to take a hard look at trying to expand that parking lot a little bit. It's so well used. The golf track feasibility study, that's out there a few years. And we always have some, you know, requests in for fence repair and replacement, which dovetails with some of the items from the park board. And so again, please remember, this is draft, hasn't been to the board yet. These are all requests. And any questions on this I can answer tonight, or I'll make sure some of the newer members have my card. You can always just give me a call, and I can step through this with you, and as could Mrs. Cohen, but I can give you the details on a lot of the infrastructure items.
Steve, just a question. I get over to the Friends of the Radnor Trail Park. I know the restrooms there, they're locked, and I know there's probably a vandalism issue and so on, but is there a time that they're open for general use, or?
That's the combination lock, and they, so
I didn't have the combination.
everybody in Radnor is supposed to know this. It's 1, 2, 3. So I put it out on TV so everybody now knows.
1, 2, 3.
Write that on
Okay,
your
thank you.
handpad.
So all the
On the
sports
website.
group, yeah,
I
it's on the
understand. I
website.
didn't know whether it's because of a vandalism issue. I know we've had that in different places, so, but, okay. You
We're-
guys
we're-
do a nice job with that.
We're trying to get a price to put these timer door locks on all the
Okay.
bathrooms, like do a 1 or 2 each year.
Dawn to dusk?
So we could do a dawn to dusk, and that way there's no, for the few
Great.
people that don't know the combination, there's no, you know, there's no concern. And that way it's open all the time. There's nothing worse when you're at a nice park and you want to use the facility and the door's locked and you're like, what's the purpose?
I agree.
So yes, we're going to be working on that too.
Now, the last question, on the solar bathrooms, restrooms, piping in water is not necessary? I
No,
think
the-
you answered the electricity with solar panels.
Right.
But what about water?
They're composting restrooms, just like what we have at Ditmar. So everything is taken care of, all the waste is actually composted. And the solar panel, the only duty that has is to power the electric door lock and a safety light or two.
Great. Just a quick review. It's excellent. You guys, nice job with it. Thank you.
Would you be able to, I see that for Capelli, there's an anticipated public-private partnership entry there. Would you be able, are you at liberty to elaborate on that, or?
That's something I'd probably leave better to the manager.
Okay.
But we are always looking for public-private partnerships in enhancing that area. And we've spoken to a few groups very casually, but, so that's why there's a $2 million expense, and then there's also a $2 million revenue to offset it. So the township's contribution is the land, if you will, and then whatever entity comes in, whether it be a ball field or whatever it could be, it's their contribution to build it. And again, I don't know what it necessarily is.
Steve, what's the timing for presenting this budget to the Board of Commissioners and ultimate approval of the final plan with details like this?
So it gets presented Monday night, and I apologize, Bill White had the board adopted a very specific schedule that they have to follow by law. They have to have a preliminary budget approved by a certain time and a final budget approved. But the process starts Monday night in a presentation of this of the entire budget.
So if anybody on this board has comments with regard to this, we're probably not going to meet again to be able to present those comments. Should we send them directly to you and Tammy and copy, Jim and Andy on that? Is that the best way? if
You
we
could
have
do that.
Specific comments here?
Absolutely, and we can, make changes to that, and by all means, would love to have you at the meeting to support any of the projects that you feel, are really special. And Tammy has your pulse a lot better than I do, so, I'm sure she can opine on what you feel are very important projects and things that you want to see move through. And if they're not on here, just let me know, and we'll put them on. This is a baseline for you and all of us to work off of.
Thank you.
All right, well, I just want to thank all the board members for first doing the inspections of the different parks, to make suggestions to the staff, and then also especially to Chris for compiling them and submitting them so that the staff can utilize them as they see fit for the budget process. So again, if you have any questions or, I guess, email Steve about that. Next, we will move on to the discussion of the cell towers. That we had a meeting last month in which the 3 presentations were provided or given to us. So I just want to sort of open it up to members of the board to see if they had any further questions or really if there was additional information that was needed in order for us to proceed with our consideration of the proposals.
I guess, Andy, when I looked at the 3 proposals and went back over them, I don't feel comfortable enough saying this one should be over the other one. I do say the Towers of PA prepared for their presentation and covered a lot more than the other 2 presenters. Ultimately, what I'd like to see, regardless of who the vendor is for this, is that the township management make sure that they weave into any agreements a requirement that radio frequencies are tested on the health implications of cell towers. I know we heard in part of the presentation, oh, there's no problem with them, it's well below the federal regulations. I'm not at ease with that. I would like to see something, regardless of what they have done in other communities and other towns, that we stand alone and say that if you are going to be the provider of the cell tower, that you will provide for the township people the current standards and testing measurements really on a semi-annual basis so that it can be broadcast to the community that, hey, the cell tower's there, okay? This is what it's doing, and this is what the federal standards are. We're below it, higher than it, and that it's ongoing. I think one of the presenters said they do it initially, but then there were, I don't know about the follow-up in subsequent years. I would like to see it done in subsequent years. That's number 1 priority. Number 2 priority, I guess, is the aesthetics aspect of it, what we're doing in the township. I wasn't comfortable with when we said something about emergency generators and said, oh, yes, we're going to have an emergency generator there. And then somebody in the board here said, well, you put an emergency generator in, that has to go into a test mode each week, okay, whether it's on Monday or Tuesday night. And the sound attenuation on that, I think that should be brought out. That kind of was brushed over. I would like to know what it looks like. Give me an example. Tell me where you've put one in this nearing community. I'll drive a half hour to go see what that cell tower looks like, and I want to see the full layout, what the generator looks like, and, all of that. And it wasn't until the last presenter that we pushed the issue about alternates to these cell trees, that he said, oh, you could do this or you could do that. Other people weren't, they were very reticent about presenting that possibility. We heard from one presenter saying, well, if we do that kind of an installation, then we're going to limit how many cell providers are going to be in there. We heard that. I'm not that conversant with it. I don't know. But, I think health, the aesthetics, the finances that's going to accrue to the township, and that belongs with those guys over there. They're going to say who has the best deal to help us, to help the township. It was interesting. I know that we've heard from some of the community about, hey, I don't have 911 service in my particular area, and so on. I don't want that to happen either for township people. But then I also heard another person say, hey, you can get an amplifier for your own home that will address that. I don't know. Has that been pursued? So that's all I'm going to say on it.
Well, I'm going to take a step back, I guess. Having seen the presentations, I know we have not everybody here, but those members of the board that are here, are any of you have any potential conflicts, whether real family, friend, or business relationship with any of the presenters that might present a potential conflict? I just wanted to ask that.
Oh, no.
All right, I just wanted to get that taken care of first. I think what might be best, and I'm open to hear different ideas on this, is that we prepare ourselves to make a vote on the presentations that are before us next month. I think one of the initial sort of gateway questions we have to answer as a board is, and we answered it initially, I think, back in our June meeting, was, is this something we're even willing to consider now that we saw the presentations? I can tell you that the presentations, personally, seeing what these things look like, how high they were going to be, it took them more out of the abstract, even though technically they are still in the abstract. They took them and brought home what exactly is in front of us. And I think the first question I would like to put to the board is this an initiative we're still willing to consider at this point? Because if it's not, then might as well know that sooner rather than later. So I guess that's the first question I'd like to put out there, is considering the consideration of potentially entering into the building of these cell towers. Is that still a proposition we're willing to consider?
I would go forward with it.
No, I think it is. I think that we need to do a better job of defining the scope of what's expected from us, and we need Elaine and the Board of Commissioners to kind of highlight that for us. Are we strictly here to offer a recommendation as to whether we should put 1 or 3 cell towers in these 3 parks that have been identified? Do we think that's a good thing, and that the township should move forward with it, and then pass it off to the township staff and the board with regard to negotiations about aesthetics, about safety, about income, about all these other things? I kind of think I would sense that's more of our scope from a Parks and Rec standpoint. I'd like to hear from Elaine as to what the Board of Commissioners is expecting from us. So once we know the scope, then we can better be prepared next month to, take a formal vote on what we'd like to recommend to them.
In response to that, I think Andy's comment about the gateway question being, is this a suitable use for our parks? That's really what your expertise and what we're looking to you for guidance. You're our experts in our parks and how our residents use our parks. And so that's the key question here. Now that you have some idea, not a great precise idea, but some idea of what is going to be involved with these, the question is, do you as a board feel that this is a suitable use for each of these parks? And that gateway question is really, we need to hear that from you. The financials and which is a better deal and which is a better company, that's not really the expertise of this board. The expertise of this board is our parks, how we use them, how our residents enjoy them, and the analysis that I would like to see is your opinion of how these structures and the accoutrements around them will affect the use and enjoyment of our parks.
But Elaine, there is one question for you, probably more than one, but one that strikes me that I really want the information on is, I think if we all had our druthers and we didn't need cell towers, we wouldn't want them, period, in these parks. But there's sort of a cost-benefit thing that is escaping me. I might be willing to entertain some tower of some type in some park at some location if there's really a need of the townships, in addition to people needing cell service, that is satisfied. Are the dollars that we get and the benefit we can get from those dollars worth it? And that's something I'm still not clear on, either because I just don't have the numbers or I don't really know how to evaluate the numbers. How much, what kind of price tag do you put on a pristine park versus one that's a little compromised, but your neighbors can now get cell service? How badly does the township need or want the funds we get? What could we use it for that we wouldn't be able to and spend it on if we didn't make these deals?
Right, and that is a completely legitimate analysis. On this park, we find that it's really going to interfere with use because of this, that, and the other reason. However, we recognize that there may be a need, and it may be outweighed, but we find that there's going to be an interruption, or that it could be a compatible, your interpretation of what the effect is going to be on our park. And if you don't have a conclusion, it's a horrible, we don't want it there, but we recognize it might be necessary. That's a legitimate analysis. So.
Well, I think there's a couple of questions. I think this is still an initiative we should be considering reviewing at this point. I think this is something that we should mull over and make our recommendations. I wasn't turned off by the whole premise of it based on the presentations. That's just me personally. And if the rest of the board agrees, or enough of the board agrees, then we should continue to do the due diligence that we said we would do originally. But I do think that there are still more questions that need to be answered. One of the questions I have is, what is the current state of the emergency communications at the different parks? That's a very important factor for me that would like to have some. I think it goes into the cost benefit that Mary was mentioning. I think also a consideration that I have that I would like to know is, will these presenters, are they open to doing less than the 3 parks that they proposed at one time? I personally think that this is a step, if we're going to take, we should take it gingerly and maybe consider doing one before we decide to do any further ones. And if that's a business proposition that, based on their certain circumstances, makes it inefficient for them to proceed with this, I think that's a question we should know now. But I'm sure those are the questions I have. I'm sure many other members of the board have other questions of information we would need to be able to make an informed decision and ultimate recommendation at our November meeting.
Something else I'd like to factor into it, given everything we know right now, and I heard, I'm not sure in passing, I think it was unofficial, just conversation, that if some of these cell tower providers are not successful, they have other alternatives. Namely, they could move into other locations in Radnor Township that would address their needs. And, what is to preclude them doing that, going to a private institution that has the area, that they can put up a cell tower, that, granted, they would have to go through zoning and so on and so forth, but we know with zoning, too, you can't just zone something out and say it's not allowed. Is it better to be involved with having them come in with a little more control from the township? Just something to factor in. I don't know, but I heard that that's a possibility that you may want to consider in it. And I don't want to be held hostage to anyone saying, if we don't do it in your 3 parks, then we're going to go over here to this location. But that's something just that you want to factor in, and could that happen?
Certainly. And also, there is a summary, I think it's been provided for everybody, sort of a comparison of the terms and some of the monetary terms of the 3 providers. I know these are original or initial offers, but it's something that has been provided. I know it's in everyone's packets here. This is additional information I think we all sort of need to mull over and look at. What I would suggest, and I'm curious to hear everybody else's opinion on, is that we continue to consider the proposals and whether to go and take it to a vote, and plan to take it to a vote in our next meeting, but that we set an internal deadline for the submission of any information or questions that we may have, so we can have the answers to those significantly in advance of the next meeting, so we can make an informed vote. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Do we know, Steve, who prepared this summary of the presentations?
Jennifer DiStefano, I believe, because I see her name at the bottom.
Okay, if I had a question about what was provided to us, so there's a number in here that doesn't look right to me. If I have a question about that, direct that through Tammy, and then she'll get the answer for
Right.
us.
Jennifer is the manager's executive assistant.
Okay.
So you could go right to her or Bob, or through Tammy, it's fine.
Okay.
What I would suggest is everybody to think over what additional information you need, and if you could provide it to us. Today's the 9th. Provide any questions as soon as possible, but no later than the 15th of this month. Do you think that's doable? If you want to send it to me, and then I could combine them all and circulate them to Tammy and see what the best answers we can get. Is there any public participation concerning this issue?
This is on.
I hope so.
Hi, my name is Pete Kingsbury. I'm at 701 South Ithan Avenue, and I work with the Friends of Ithan Valley Park. I guess one thing that we kind of came away with and have kind of thought through is I really felt that a lot of the presentations were extremely generic, okay? They weren't taking into consideration, at least for us, for Ithan Valley Park, that this is a park setting, it's a rural park setting, and they're coming in and they're doing a lot of modifications, damage, if you will, to the park. There was a comment made that at one point that the person had said that they would be erecting the tower 200 feet from the wall. Well, 200 feet in the wall might even put you in Ithan Avenue. So clearly, there were, it's a little bit of unclarity. Another thing that had been mentioned was they weren't quite sure how stable the bridges were, and they might just avoid any kind of heavy equipment and just go straight through the stream, just kind of probably build some kind of a pontoon bridge over the stream. And that was really, disappointing. I'm concerned that I guess it was such a long meeting, we were probably all numb to the thing, to the people, what they were saying, but I think we have to your point, Andy, we have to move very gingerly. I really know and love Ithan Valley Park, but I'm sure Fenimore Woods, as well as the Willows, there's folks that feel strongly about that as well. And I think that we have to be we have to hold these folks to a very high set of standards. We have to understand exactly what they're going to do. In Ithan Valley Park, what we're thinking is if we're going to put a tower there, and we're certainly willing, and we've been in contact with Bob Zenkowski over the past few years on this topic, and we said we're not doing battle. We're not avoiding something like this, because we know that there is definitely a cell issue at Ithan Valley Park. They looked at this 20 years ago. So our feeling is, if they're going to put a cell tower in the park, why not just put it in the middle of the parking lot, get it over with? You're not taking out a single tree. There's not a great deal of use of the parking lot at this point in time. They could get in and out real quickly. It'd be very easy for them to erect the tower, put in the equipment, and that's our feeling. But I think we would like to work with you, and we would like to ensure that these folks are doing their absolute best. The way that they had kind of thrown off, different alternatives, kind of the seat of the pants, I'm real concerned with that. I don't think they're a private company. They don't have our best interests at heart. They have their own interests at heart, and therefore we have to really work together on this and really force them to do the best they can. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Pilling from Garrett Hill. You mentioned the fact that a person who was in the audience mentioned the fact that they had bought an amplifier for $250, which had brought cell service to their house that they had never had before. So I'll tell Mary who that is, and I'd like to see you look into it. Of course, I think we all have an issue with the Willows, and now that Jeffrey Miller has signed the contract for the mansion, it's my opinion that we need to bring him into this. And there was really only one of those providers who would even look at an alternative site in the Skunk Hollow property. Well, there is this prohibition on Skunk Hollow because it was bought with state funds, putting something like that in Skunk Hollow because it makes money. But I'd like to see this board write Bill Adolph and Greg Vitale, because it's my understanding that it's going to take an act of the legislature to say, the FCC, this is important to them, and let's talk to the legislature and see if they will act on our behalf so this tower can go in Skunk Hollow and it doesn't go behind this mansion that we've decided to save. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? All right, so I would encourage, I appreciate everyone's participation this evening. I would encourage all those who are concerned about this issue to attend our November meeting. So with that, why don't we move on to new business and the Boy Scouts presentation.
Hi. Good.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for having us present to you tonight. My name is Jay Bowden. I'm the Troop Committee Chairman of Radnor Troop 284 and the Vice President of Friends of Radnor 284. First, I'd like to make it clear that there are two separate and distinct organizations we're discussing tonight. Radnor Troop 284 is part of the Boy Scouts of America and is chartered to Wayne Presbyterian Church. The Friends of Radnor 284 is a 501c3 organization that we formed earlier this year to maintain the Troop 284's presence in the Boy Scout cabin and create a permanent home for the continued service of the Township. So a little background. Eric and I both grew up in Radnor Township and attended Radnor schools. We both joined Troop 284 when we were Scouts, when we were younger, in the 70s. Eric in 1972, and I joined in 1976. Our parents and families were involved in the community and in Scouting. We're both Eagle Scouts, and over the past 15 years, we became active in Scouting again. Eric is Scoutmaster for the past 6 years, and I serve as the Troop Committee Chairman. Eric and his wife Laura have 2 sons. Kevin's an Eagle Scout and now attends UVA. His younger son John is active in the troop as a first-class Scout and is a 7th grader at the middle school. My son Alex is a Life Scout and is a senior at Radnor. So I'd like to take a few minutes and provide some insight into the troop. Many of you already know, but I'd like to share. Who is Radnor 284? Radnor Boy Scout Troop 284 will celebrate its 95th anniversary of outstanding service in 2015. Founded in 1920, Radnor Troop 284 Scouts have contributed much to the Radnor community as well as to their schools over the decades. The Scouts provide hundreds of hours of service to the projects such as maintaining the Radnor ABC House, removing litter along Darby Paoli Road, and rebuilding bridges and trails in the township's parks. This past June, the Scouts supported a Radnor recreation program, the Great American Backyard Campout at the Willows, by providing educational stations about first aid and fire making. Whether it's at school, a church, a public park, the Scouts of 284 are making our community a better place to live. Troop 284 Scouts range in age from 11 to 17 years old and contribute much within their schools of Radnor, Haverford, Shipley, and the Episcopal Academy. Beyond demanding program required to advance in Scouts, many are part of the marching band, leaders on the varsity crew team, members of the ultimate Frisbee team, baseball, soccer, tennis, and it goes on. Troop 284 Scouts are active contributors to their school's robotics programs, a natural extension of the Scouting's new science, technology, engineering, and math program called NOVA. Scouts from 284 are also involved in student government, Model United Nations, debate club, and the school newspapers. In their free time, Scouts enjoy other hobbies like fencing and acoustic guitar. Over many years, Scouts from 284 have been recognized with top academic honors and awards, and have graduated from some of our country's finest colleges and universities, going on to successful careers in their chosen field. Many Scouts achieve success during their high school years, attributable in part to the skills and character they have gained through Scouting. Troop 284 believes in and operates a boy-led troop. Adult leaders are active participants focused on safety and guidance. But the boys run the troop. This kind of structure allows the boys to make mistakes and learn from them. What better way than to get a food for breakfast on a campout? The boys are placed in smaller groups called patrols, each patrol having its own designated leaders and responsibilities. On every camping trip, patrols are responsible for their own food, equipment, and organization. Many lessons are learned through the experience of outdoor adventure. No electronics and an emphasis on self-reliance are powerful teachers for the boys. Unlike a sports team, no boy is cut from Boy Scouts. Instead, the boys must learn how to apply each Scout's talents and personalities for the greater good of the patrol and the troop. While this process can lead to some trying times, eventually the patrols become high-functioning, autonomous units within the larger troop, and the boys learn a lot in the process. Many senior Scouts will tell you that the greatest skills they have gained from their days at 284 is leadership, which will serve them well in life. Not all the boys achieve the ultimate rank of Eagle Scout, but when the boys leave Troop 284 at any level, they've acquired many life skills. Troop 284 used to meet at a cabin in what is now called Odoricio Park. Many of you know well, it was called Quarry Park back in the 1960s. When it was announced that it was going to be sold to the Township, the Scout cabin there was taken over by the Township, and when the pending sale to the Township was announced, the Scott family offered us the use of the one-room schoolhouse. So we moved in about 1961. For more than 50 years, Troop 284 has had the good fortune of using our cabin, the one-room schoolhouse, located on Darby Paoli Road on the Ardrossan estate. Friends of Radnor Troop 284 is a 501c3 organization formed to maintain the Troop 284's presence in the cabin and create a permanent home for continued service to the Township. Friends of 284 was established to encourage and promote Scouting, as well as to help preserve open space in Radnor Township. Friends of 284 seeks to equally engage all members of the local and wider community, regardless of ethnic origin, sexual orientation, religious affiliation, age, income level, or special needs. Friends of 284 hopes to raise enough funds to purchase the cabin, along with some of the surrounding acreage, when the land is sold to the Township. As part of the effort, Friends of 284 plans to establish a reserve for ongoing maintenance and programming costs. With the additional acreage, the troop plans to create activity areas on the property. The land will also be a starting point of a permanent orienteering course, with your help, for use by the Scouts and the community members. Lastly, as part of these fundraising efforts, the troop hopes to offer scholarships to deserving and needy families of the area. Now, with the pending sale of the property, we have entered into discussions with various members of the Board of Commissioners, the Board of Park and Recreation, and the Township Manager to work through the process of acquiring the cabin and a few acres for the long-term use of the Scouts. So now, here's our ask. We request the sale to the Scouts of 2.3 acres, including the Scout cabin. Our intent is to create a permanent home for the troop on the property. to provide best practice land stewardship, to plan safe drop-off and pickup of scouts, to be good neighbors to the families on Lawrence Lane and the township as a whole, and to change the central use of the land from the Lawrence Lane side of the cabin to the Wheeler Tract side of the cabin, which is the flat area at the top of the hill. What we do not seek is the ability to ever subdivide the land, to ever build new homes on the land, or to ever convert it to any type of home or livable structure. We are concerned about a number of issues, and we'll work with the township to accomplish these goals. They would include safe easements across the township land to our parcel, proper restroom facilities, potential city water and/or sewer, addition of exterior lighting to the structure for safety, especially if the trail, multi-use trail goes in, potentially adding new plantings to create a thicker tree line against the Lawrence Lane neighbors, and of course, to comply with any township land use and zoning ordinances. We look forward to your consideration. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for your presentation, and also thank you to Troop 284. I know the Eagle Scout, you guys have dedicated a lot of service to the township, and it's always been a pleasure to have your Eagle Scout candidates come out here and explain their different projects at different parks. They've really been improvements that they've been making over the years, and so thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. It's an honor.
I guess a couple questions I have is, I know this is today's the first day I've heard of this presentation. I guess, how far along are these discussions? I guess, Elaine, I know you mentioned that, I don't know if you're the Board of Commissioner member you was mentioning, but where are we at here?
Well, this is the beginning. There's nothing drafted. There's nothing, I mean, we've, now that closing is in the near future, these are the discussions in earnest. So this is the process that we're starting right now. Nothing has been put down on paper yet. We're sort of working out verbally how it might look, and we're looking, there has been a neighborhood meeting. This meeting will, see what kind of reaction and concerns people have. And then from after this, we'll start to draft, assuming that, unless everybody here says this is a terrible idea, forget about it. And then that once an easement and an agreement is drafted, we'll all work with that, to kind of hone in on what this relationship would look like.
At this point, the use of that property has been granted to you by Scott's, correct?
That's correct. We have a lease.
If we just move it to the owner being the township, okay, is there some reason why we just can't maintain the same status quo or same aspects of that lease, short of selling the property and all the things that go with it, limitations and so on, can't that be just continued?
That could be a solution. In our initial conversations, we didn't really as a township, want to buy this part of it. We didn't want another building because we have trouble keeping up our buildings, and the last thing we needed was another building. So, I mean, to be perfectly honest, when we first started negotiation with the Scotts family, this was not a part of the property we wanted, the Boy Scout house. But they were not willing to subdivide and sell separately.
But I assume the Scotts are not maintaining the building now, correct? You
No.
guys,
No,
you, the
so
Trumpets.
a little history. We started leasing the building in 1960. When we took the building over, it had very little roof, no windows, no doors, no electricity. The Scouts did all of that work and have maintained it ever since. The one thing we'd like to do is, we've been displaced a number of times. It's been a long time, but we have been displaced, and we'd really like to be able to have a permanent home. And since we've been there for 50 years, we could see ourselves being there for another 50 years plus, and to have our own destiny, to be able to own the cabin and make improvements without having to deal with a landlord.
But a 99-year lease could achieve that same thing without the township saying, hey, we're going to sell a
Well,
piece of the property and
The
easements
township
and-
would also benefit because we'd like to make a financial agreement to purchase it. So with the debt that you're going to take on to buy the rest of the properties, we feel that we're contributing also to the township in lowering your debt load.
Was there discussions with the Scott family before the
Yes,
purchase?
yes, actually. We have letters from the troop committee going back to the early 1970s, 60s, well, asking Eddie Scott and previous members of the Scott family to purchase the property over the years, many letters. All of them were denied. More recently, within the last 3 or 4 years, we had direct conversations with Eddie Scott, and he said he'd like to see us have the cabin long-term, but it has to be part of a larger deal with the township. He didn't want to necessarily see us buy the property and something else go wrong with the deal. And this is a couple of years back with the township. So he made it clear that that would only happen in a transaction with the township.
Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Jay, for coming with
You're
this
welcome.
presentation, Eric and everybody. I have a question about the use of the property and the cabin. Will it change or be altered from the way you've been using it over the last 50 years?
Not in any dramatic fashion, no. We're
So-
going to run a Boy Scout troop out of it. And if we can get a little bit more land where we can have a flat area and have more activities there with the scout troop, that's our intention.
So you're not looking to
We're not looking to
parking
hold
lots and,
well, actually, the safety of the drop-off and pickup of scouts is a big concern with us and the Lawrence Lane neighbors. We'd love to be able to have an easement to get on the property and not a paved parking lot, because we don't want to pave paradise, but someplace that we could easily pull off, a grass area, wood chips or something. We're typically only there for a couple of hours on a Saturday morning. And then we have a couple of picnics during the year. So safe egress and parking would be wonderful, yeah.
one more question, sorry. Have you discussed terms of a purchase?
Very briefly, with Elaine, Steve was part of the conversation, a couple members of the Board of Commissioners. That's all to be determined.
Okay, thanks.
You mentioned you were displaced a couple times. Can you explain what you meant by that and what the
Well,
reasons were behind it?
So the one that I know of for sure was the cabin that was at the corner of Odoricio Park. It's way down in the hollow. There's still a fireplace there. The Scott family, I believe, owned that property and we leased it or were allowed to meet there. And when that property was sold to the township, we were asked to leave. So we've got a little history there, and we'd like to be able to secure our permanent location.
But you haven't been displaced from the new location you've been in since
No,
1960?
not at all. No,
Okay.
we're in there, all of our memorabilia is in there, and we meet there on Saturday mornings.
And do you have a budget put together for the fundraising you're doing in terms of the purchase of the property as well as the maintenance, what you expect the cost to be, et cetera?
We do have ongoing budgets. So we formed a not-for-profit. We have 5 members of the board. We've got regular meeting minutes and all that sort of stuff going on. To date, we've raised, on our website, it shows about $180,000 that we've raised, and we have a matching grant that we hope to get. So we're well over $300,000 at this time. We also have excellent fundraising. Many of you here have probably bought our Christmas wreaths over the year. So besides our regular fundraising, we've had very generous donors from alum and residents of the township. So right now, I'd say we're very well funded.
And do you have an idea of what you expect the maintenance cost to be ongoing year after year if you were to purchase this tract?
I would say ongoing maintenance would be less than $10,000 a year. Fairly minimal.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Andy, could I just, you did an excellent presentation,
Thanks.
okay, with that, but I like, you touched on many items there, like easements and things like that, and I'd like to see some sort of a lack of a better term, a spreadsheet of saying, hey, we would like to purchase this piece of ground, and with that goes, we need this, 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 and this. You say you want to move your primary entrance to, those
Yeah,
things,
so-
I'd like to know that consideration.
We-
Before I would say, hey, yeah, I will vote this up or vote it down, for whatever my vote counts.
We'd
but
be,
that
we'd
would
be
help.
happy to put that together. That's not a problem or issue, and we can do it, include maps, photos, et cetera. Eric can speak to this a little bit.
Just a little. Part of that has to come from the township, because we don't know, there's a trail planned, that hasn't been engineered, so we don't really know what the engineering implications are for the curb cut or, whatever you want to call it.
I
We know-
understand. I was out there, I walked it with Elaine back in July, okay, and we looked at, and she said that, well, this is a consideration and so on. But again, it's kind of nebulous. I'd like
Yeah.
to see if this happens, that happens, and
It's,
so on.
it's very nebulous. What we do know is that from an engineering standpoint, you can't have the driveway where the driveway is now, because the trail would go down and up. We have some ideas about where it would work, but, we have to work with you guys to figure out what the best thing is. We don't, as Jay said, we don't want to pave it. That was made clear from the beginning, and we never, by the township, but we never wanted to do that anyway. And substantially, the use doesn't change. Expansion of activities doesn't mean that we're going to have a jamboree or some kind of thing like that. It's really just about having more space to expand out and not have it to take a monkey bridge down once it's been built or something like that.
You did mention in your presentation, I thought it was fascinating, and I'd like to see that, where when you do that, it also brings back some, not only financial stuff to the township, you always look at that, but you said that there could be some opportunities for township, involvement in what you're doing. I think you were talking about, a ropes course or something like that could be open on a scheduled basis for participation
Yeah,
from the
it
township,
wouldn't-
which is great.
Yeah, and
that's
it
the
wouldn't
kind of
be
things I
a
love.
high ropes course, it would be low rope, meaning that everything is less than 3 feet off the ground. An orienteering course that would connect up with the orienteering that the Delaware Valley orienteering course, they have it laid out in the Willows, but we'd love to bring it up. You start down there and you come up into the Wheeler Tract. So.
Could I just ask, thank you for your presentation. I appreciated hearing all of this. How many scouts do you currently have enrolled in the program?
I think 65
65?
scouts are enrolled right now.
Thank
And
you.
that's the Boy Scout troop.
Okay,
There are also other scout troops in Radnor Township. There are at least 4 Cub packs and two other troops,
2 other troops in the township.
2 other Boy Scout troops in the township. And
are they affiliate, what's the relationship?
there
Excuse
is
me.
no real relationship. The Cub packs feed into the Boy Scout troop, but the Cub Scouts get to choose where they'd like to go.
Okay,
So most of the Radnor boys go through the Radnor program in general.
thank you.
Any further questions? Well, I guess to sort of piggyback off of what Pat said, if maybe we could get, and I also appreciate the presentation, found it very informative. If you could provide something either to the township that can be passed on to us, sort of a little more, I guess, on paper of what you're looking for and what the ask is, so we can sort of see that.
Who should that go to?
It could go to, I guess, Tammy or who, I guess,
Okay.
and then she could pass it on to us.
Through Tammy?
I hate to nominate Tammy when she's not here, but I learned earlier, you always blame the person who's not in attendance. So with that,
We'll send it to Tammy.
With that in mind, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Oh,
One more question. Is there a timing element where it has to happen or it won't happen?
actually, no, there isn't a timing element. I
The
mean,
township sets that.
Right.
Yeah, so
We
the-
originally expected it to be somewhere in the first quarter,
Okay.
and then
Elaine, can you speak to that?
Eddie sort of accelerated things, I
Well, the
believe.
township will be closing, right. The township will be closing on the property probably in December of 2014.
Okay.
Now, there's no, it's not absolutely necessary that we close on this property if this goes forward simultaneously. However, anything that we take from this, selling this portion, would be less money we would have to take out in a bond. So it's helpful to know before we go to market for the bond if we're going to move forward with this, so we will take out less money.
So then it is a timing, we would like to have an answer.
My understanding is that you can't subdivide it till you own it. So, but we're willing to work with the township in terms of when the money transfers
Well,
hands,
That's good information.
you know,
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
You're driving the bus.
yeah.
So, Elaine, let me make sure I understand.
Yeah.
The township's closing in December on the purchase of the land. And
That's looking like what's going to
ideally,
happen.
you're saying if we're going to do this, you'd like to close it simultaneously so we have to
It wouldn't
borrow
be
less.
simultaneously because we have to go through the hoops of subdividing.
And how much are we paying for the land?
It's the appraised value, I think, was about $100,000 an acre.
No, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's
In
what I was
total, how
curious
much are we paying and borrowing?
It is
Approximately.
11.6 for all of it. We're going to be borrowing less than that because we have a state DCNR grant, but there's some private fundraising, so it'll be a little bit less. You know, the bond will be in the neighborhood of 10 million.
And has a projected purchase price been discussed between you and
The market
Scout
appraised
troop?
value. It would be the appraised market value.
Which is,
I think it's about 100, it's a 99 something.
okay,
So the
so
town-
it really wouldn't affect our borrowing per se in terms of what our cost is on a monthly basis, or interest cost, et cetera, whether we close a
Still-
deal with the
it
Boy
still
Scouts, if we do a
contributes.
deal. I mean, 100,000 versus 10 million is,
Well, you know, every 200,000 counts. So if we don't need an extra 200,000, we won't borrow
did she
it.
just double the price to you guys?
Well, it's more than 1 acre.
No, it's 2 acres, okay. All right, thank you.
Anything else?
No, thank you very much.
Thank,
Yeah, I know.
it's okay, we're good. Okay, thank you very
They haven't
much.
given us a price, ever.
All right, well, that's the end of the agenda items. Is there any general public participation?
Pete Kingsbury, 701 South Ethan Avenue. I just wanted to let you folks know how much we are supported in what we've done at Ethan Valley Park by the Eagle Scouts projects. Just to name a few, one of these young men built a joining path from our top of the hill down to our stream path. We have, so many people trying to cross through what are some very beautiful native and exotic plants on the hill there. So he built a terrific built a terrific joining path down along there. You might have also noticed in the last 6 months, one of these folks had built a communications board at Ethan Valley Park, which is, he just did a fantastic job on it. Recently, and I think it's close to completion, you would also notice this just driving by the park, is a wooden stairway joining our stream path to our mill race path. What had been a situation where you would be walking along the stream to the waterfall, and then you'd have to climb up about 10 feet up to the mill race path. And now he has built this just beautiful wooden stairway, which is terrific. And it would allow people to go on into other areas of the park. Currently underway is along our southern trail path is are 2 short paths that are going to be joining a very wooded path and allow people to go along the stream in kind of little outlook areas. And he's also going to be putting in a couple of benches there as well. So it's very, very nice. Identification, finally, one of these folks is building a set of markers for trees that he had identified as being very unique in the park. And he's going to have them marked with the the GR coding so that you could go ahead and learn about those trees via a website. So we've benefited a great deal from the Scouts here. They're I've just been absolutely so impressed with each and every one of these kids. And I think we owe these kids a home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Pilling, I can say ditto. We have the most gorgeous shed at Skunk Hollow Community Garden that one of the Eagle Scouts built. I think he thought the shed might be 4 feet by 8 feet, but it turned out it is 24 feet long and 4 feet deep. And another Scout in the Radnor troop is building us a sign that will say Skunk Hollow Community Garden. But what I really wanted to tell you, and I didn't even think about it till I got into the parking lot. Thanks to Mary Coe, who sent me an email this spring, late spring, and said, the PHS, Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, is running their garden contest. Why don't we enter? So with a very deep breath, because there's 63 families, I issued the challenge, and I must say everybody responded. And the judges came early one Sunday morning, and we had coffee for them, and we had mint water, and Liz Yunkins had made zucchini nut bread, and they admired the garden, and they left. And that was early July, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited some more, and people kept saying, haven't you heard anything? And no, we hadn't. But Tuesday, we received a letter from PHS, and we have won the blue ribbon in the vegetable gardening category against supposedly 350 other competitors, but it's what they gave it to us for that I think is what's best. It says, the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society recognized Skunk Hollow Community Garden, I'm reading it off my cell phone, for motivating people to improve the quality of life and create a sense of community through horticulture in the category of vegetable gardening. So we're, as Mary says, we rock. We rock. And it's really quite, And the other thing is we sort of urged our gardeners to not allow their vegetables to just sit on the vine, and Casey Layfield suggested it, and we went ahead and we made some stakes with red flags this summer, and Mary organizes the Philabundance Project, which goes down to Loaves and Fishes in Prospect Park, who are serving 650 families with 26 days of meals per month. And so we gave away, we collect it, we wash it, we weigh it, we package it. Mostly Mary drives it to Linville Orchards. And then I go to Mom's, which is organic vegetables grown in Pennsylvania, and it seems to me the best medium. So this year we gave away an equivalent value of $3,250. So Mary gets the kudos for that.
Thank you for letting us know about that, and congratulations, Sarah. I know you have put into an awful lot of work on the garden, and I can tell you a lot of people at the fall event this past Sunday were very impressed with what they saw back there, just sort of people who hadn't been back there before, so congratulations. How you doing?
Hi, good evening. Hi. My name's Todd Kellerman. I'm a resident of Lawrence Lane. I'm here tonight with my neighbor, John Buggy, and a number of other neighbors from Lawrence Lane, and this is in reference to the comments about the Boy Scout presentation. The Lawrence Lane property, as you well know, is off of the Darby-Paley Road area and shares a common border with the Wheeler Tract, which is contemplated in this larger open space sale. The Boy Scout hut or cabin sits behind a number of the homes, and there's been this kind of pre-existing experience over years and years that has worked very well. And what the residents of Lawrence Lane are looking to accomplish is to accomplish the status quo, and we have a number of questions for this board to consider in its vote related to what's been proposed to you today. We were recently approached by the Boy Scout representatives in the last 2 weeks related to this proposal. And it's, as you had stated earlier, it's the first time you were hearing of it. It was the first time we were hearing of it as well. It's something we were highly concerned about, given our perception of some lack of specifics related to the use. The level of use today is quite acceptable. However, it appears that the level of use that is being proposed is increasing quite substantially, and maybe some of that might come from the non-specific nature of the plans that have been proposed. And so we would ask the board to request and consider the very specific plans that are being contemplated as you have. Not only is the use seem to be increasing quite a bit, the amount of space that they're using and being proposed to use is increasing. The existing cabin sits on top of the hill of the Wheeler Tract, past the old barn, and a very small area is used, and what's being proposed is to purchase a little over 2 acres, which is more than a multiple of 2 to 3 times of the existing space that is being used. And so the magnitude or multitude of change relative to the use and the space that's being used, in addition to the line of sight that the houses on the side of Lawrence Lane that look over to the Wheeler Track field, is quite a substantial change that we're highly concerned about. It's our understanding that there have been some pre-negotiations and no documentation has been produced, which is what was said here today. We would ask that the board consider what the use of the property is, how the use of the property is in compliance with existing zoning and ordinance regulations as of today, and more importantly, what's being proposed. Because the use is not specific, based on our just evaluation of and reading of the zoning requirements and ordinances, it appears that that would need to be considered before any type of contract would be entered into. And so we would urge and ask that the board consider through yourself and the zoning board of the township, that what's being proposed in use and space would be in compliance with existing zoning requirements and ordinances. In particular, in addition to the uses, parking is a very significant issue in that area. We are highly concerned about safety as well. Every other Saturday, the Boy Scouts come, park on Lawrence Lane, and it's a very reasonable amount of time that they spend on the lane. It is a private residence, private cul-de-sac street, as you all well know, and that level of use has been fine over the years. However, with the increased use and size and potential scope, some of the things that Jay, I think, spoke about, orienteering, hosting, and the like, we're highly concerned about parking, not only on our lane, on Godfrey Lane, and on what type of parking might be provided for ultimately in the Wheeler Tract. All of these are questions we don't have answers to. We would hope that the answers to those questions are all resolved prior to any type of formal solicitation by the township and entering into any type of real negotiations or discussions related to entering into a contract.
I would echo Todd's comments, and thank you, Todd. And thank you, Elaine, for recently reaching out to the neighborhood over the past week to share with us the discussions that have been underway, as well as the combination not only of the Boy Scout intentions, but also the combination of the bike path, which is currently planned to empty out on Lawrence Lane, which could also have a compounding effect with regard to the traffic concerns that we have, and also the drop-off of small boys crossing a very busy road and an intersection which is also very, very busy and somewhat dangerous, we feel. Not to repeat what Todd said, but to reiterate our concerns around the zoning and ordinances, and also, I guess, the foremost concern around clarity with regard to how this impacts the neighborhood. We understand when we purchased all our homes over the last few years, it was a very low-intensity, low-density neighborhood, and now it's our impression with what we're hearing from the plans, that it may be a high-intensity situation which would change the character of the neighborhood, we feel. And so therefore, we would like to participate in an open and transparent forum regarding whatever plans may be underway collectively with the township and the parks body, to understand what decisions may be entertained, not only with the Boy Scout proposal, but other potential 501(c) environmentally sensitive organizations. Potentially, we've even discussed about other alternatives, participate in an open forum to preserve the same principles of the land, as well as the custodian of the trails, but to do so in an open forum. And we feel like we'd like that opportunity to do that. And so thank you for your time, and we appreciate your consideration, and we look forward to being partners in this process.
Thank you. Any questions? I actually have a question for the representatives of the Boy Scouts. Would you have any issues with the written proposal or being put up on the website so that it's open and able to be viewed prior to the next meeting, so that then any member of the township can see what's in mind here?
That's not a concern at all.
Okay.
Well, it's an open process.
In as much as the township has told us what's going to happen, like, we can only speculate on the engineering.
There's a lot of us speculate up
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah.
So, I mean, to the best, what I just want to try to see if we can have happen is to make sure that those we have a better idea of what your proposal is and what you're looking for, but also so those individuals can sort of see it and evaluate it. And so it's not like people are chasing after shadows here, I guess, is what I just wanted to see if there's availability to be able to do that.
I mean, we're happy to put it up there. There really isn't anything hidden that we don't.
I'm not trying to
That's it.
infer. I'm not trying to infer that there was. I just wanted to make sure that there was a process so people could see what you guys are thinking about here.
We're willing to work through the process.
All right, very
for
good.
sure.
Anything from the board?
One question for Lawrence Lane. As of now, the way things are, status quo, are acceptable to your neighborhood?
Yeah, generally speaking, yes. There's always, when you have a residential or rural, like idyllic residential area like Lawrence Lane is, surrounded by 27 acres of the Wheeler track and a cul-de-sac street, there's always kind of a natural tension between a commercial enterprise, but I think those have all kind of been worked out, and it's a reasonable balance. I think our goal would be to maintain that, so there's some suggestions that the town may be the owner. You know, that might be there are other options to consider here. We're just highly concerned with a private owner, even with the restrictions that could be imposed with various easements and the like, that an increased space and increased use and knowing the limitation of parking, we can't envision with the lack of specifics we've received, and we understand the challenges. It's a cat and mouse or chicken and egg. We totally understand that. It's hard for us to envision that there's not going to be a substantial change. But to answer your question, generally speaking, yes, we are happy with the status quo and would like to achieve what is the status quo. I would just like to make one other point. Mr. Campbell commented on. It's concerning to us that this might need to happen so quickly. It seems like an open forum process is important. The financial impact of a $200,000 potential purchase relative to a $10 million bond is, to us, immaterial, candidly. Given the level of the $10 million, if you took kind of the 10 houses that are on our street and you added up all the costs that everyone's incurred, this group of people has invested about $10 million at least over time and their personal residence and are there 365 days a year, obviously. And a $200,000 investment kind of pales in comparison to our $10 million as well. So I just want to make that additional comment. Thank you.
Well, we'll make all efforts to make sure everything is out in the open and balanced as best as possible before we make any decisions going forward.
Thank you.
One question I do have is there was brought up the potential for parking. I know that's different from the status quo, and I apologize if you mentioned it during your presentation. Have you guys thought about that? Is that something you guys see as a problem, a parking lot?
Yeah, parking. So there have been two proposals presented to us. Really, there's this trail system, which is a little bit less specific because there's some additional financing that would be needed to fund that, and the design of that's still to be reviewed at first on Monday's meeting, as was discussed earlier. But the Cub Scout proposal, we have concerns about both. I mean, Lawrence Lane has nine houses on it, and it's a cul-de-sac. On any other Saturday, just with the number of Boy Scouts that are there, our entire street is full.
Mm-hmm.
Plus Godfrey is also filled up about halfway up the hill. And there's boys walking through our yard, through John's yard and others, that's the natural tension we talked about. That can be worked out. But we are highly concerned that there's no parking in that area now. With an increased trail, which will be a higher level of use, there's certainly other benefits, but with higher use with the trail and the higher use with this Boy Scouts, which is to be in some level, if they're spending all this money and expanding the size, there will be higher use. Parking is a significant issue to us.
But if part of it is the construction of a lot, is that an issue? I mean, it seems like it would alleviate some of your concerns. Is that something that you guys have a position on yet?
I mean, we're highly concerned about bringing the public in closer to what is a very kind of isolated residential area. So an impervious coverage in a lot, parking lot would be highly concerning to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Hi, Jim Dahan, 137 Brook Farm Road. I'm an assistant scoutmaster with Troop 284, director and president of Friends of Radnor 284. So I just want to respond to some of the comments that I've heard so far, mostly for purposes of clarification. As Jay and Eric pointed out, the troops had a long presence here in the township, and particularly on that parcel of land. The area that we have the use of right now is about 1 acre. It was, I guess, at one point subdivided and has since been re-included in the Wheeler Tract. The reason why we're interested in purchasing additional land is not necessarily, principally not to expand our activity, but to shift the focus of our activity away from our Lawrence Lane neighbors. We're not interested in a commercial use in any way. I heard that word used, it's not accurate. We're not going to buy or sell anything or have any commerce. We're not interested in building a parking lot on the land. We don't want to put any additional impervious coverage on the land. We seek land preservation, exactly what they want. We might have the ability to park a few cars so as to keep the cars off of Lawrence Lane to the extent as possible. For our Saturday meetings, which happen traditionally about 25 to 30 times a year, I have never seen Lawrence Lane filled with cars. It doesn't happen. Lawrence Lane is used for drop-offs, but not for extensive parking. There may be 8 to 10 cars parked on Lawrence Lane. Lawrence Lane has 11 houses on it, but that hasn't happened. We do have one meeting a year in June. It's our annual meeting. It's called the June Roundup, and parking is a significant issue. We had conversations with the neighbors about it, and in response, we did a couple things. One is we put a porta potty in place in order to manage issues associated with people using restrooms, and we also asked for and received help from the township, thank you very much, in providing a police officer to make sure that the traffic was handled as make it as safe as possible for people coming and going. We share many of their concerns. We want to make sure that the use of the land is continued the way exactly as it has been. We want it to be as safe as possible. We're not happy with our existing exit and entry to the land, and we'd like to see that improved, and we understand that a trail is going to be built along the perimeter. The engineering of that, we're not aware of. We don't know how that's going to work, but we're more than happy to work with the township, Parks and Rec, and anybody else, including the neighbors, about how to make the exit and entrance to our property that we've been using for some time, that we've been renting, as safe as possible for all of us who use it. We don't anticipate any significant expansion in the use of what we're doing. There's not going to be, we're not going from 60 scouts to 120 scouts. The troop is going to stay the size it is. As a matter of fact, the troop is about as big as a troop can really get. When you have more than 65 scouts, 70 scouts, it becomes untenable, and you usually see scouts leaving and going to other troops. We're not having other troops coming and using the property. We're not expanding the hours or the days that we're planning on using. We're having meetings on Saturday mornings. That's our goal. That's how we've been there for 50 years. That's what we want to do. What we want to do is we want to own the land. We want to own the land so that we have the ability to guarantee that we can continue to use this parcel, which we've used for 50 years, and continue on our projects and what we've done for the benefit of the township and for the boys and the adults and the families in the township. That's our goal. That's it. And we are more than willing to sit down with, and continue to sit down as we have in the past, in Lawrence Lane, the township, and do this in as public a way as can possibly be done to make sure that all voices are heard. But we share so many of their goals. We want to preserve the character of the land. We're not interested in ever selling the land in any way that could be developed. We don't want to change it from what it is. We just want to continue doing what we've been doing there for many years. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would encourage you to continue to have those discussions with the neighbors as much as possible, see if any of these things can maybe be worked out.
We're more than happy to do it.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Hi, I'm Annie Webb, and I have a son who's a Life Scout, about to be Eagle, who's been involved in scouting in Radnor since he was a little boy at Wayne Elementary School. And I just want to speak in support of Troop 284, the gentlemen that are here, the adults that are here, and the scouts that are in the back. And I won't put them on the spot, but if they had to stand up and say the Scout oath, you would hear that a Scout is trustworthy, a Scout is honest, a Scout is clean. I mean, I don't know it all, but they do. But what I think is important about that is that I have no doubt at all that the adults in the troop and the boys will work hand in hand with the neighbors to make sure that this is done right and nobody's put out. I do have a concern as a mom about the parking. It is always a little dangerous when you drop your Scout off there. I just want to speak to the parking on Lawrence Lane. They've been great neighbors to us and allowed parking there, but it is a youth organization. There are very few, 16 and above boys who are driving themselves. There's 4 or 5 adults that stay there. It's mostly a drop-off and a pickup type of thing, not, parking for hours on end in one spot. So, I think that absolutely can be worked out. So I hope that we all can come to an amenable situation because the Scouts really deserve it. They do so much for this community. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Thank you very much.